Big news, everybody. The pick just coming in. The first Arkansas Razorback off the board in the 2021 NFL Draft is defensive tackle Jonathan Marshall, going to the New York Jets in the 6th round. So we had a lot of waiting. I've been sitting in this seat since 11 a.m. just watching pick after pick after pick, and we finally got our first one. Let's cue it up for you here. Jonathan Marshall in the 6th round. The overall pick number, I believe, let me just double check quickly. Pick number 207. It was a pick originally from Pittsburgh that got traded around and ended up falling to the Jets as they select Jonathan Marshall. Still a couple of guys on the board right now that we will get to. Felipe Franks, Rakeem Boyd, a couple others, but we're going to key in on Jonathan Marshall. I want to hear your thoughts. Hey, Travis, how you doing? William, thank you for joining us again. What do you guys think about Jonathan Marshall to the Jets? Were you surprised that it took this long for a Razorback to be drafted? I know a lot of people are thinking maybe Felipe Franks goes first. There were some analysts saying he was going to go 5th, 6th round, even before Ian Book got taken from Notre Dame, so that he's still waiting around. There is a couple, and as we go through, we're going to keep updating this draft board. If someone gets drafted while we're live, we're going to talk about it. But right now, Cleveland has a pick at 211, so not looking like a quarterback's going to be taken anytime soon. Felipe Franks will probably be the next Razorback to go off the board, but Jonathan Marshall officially drafted to the New York Jets. Really big guy in his pro day, clocked in at 6'3", 310 with incredible speed. I think that was one big thing about Marshall. His 40-yard dash was between 4.75 and 4.90. So really quick for a 300-pound tackle. The Jets obviously needing a lot of edge rushers and obviously people who can penetrate into the zone. And then Todd McShay said, we have this in an article on our Pig Trail website, he was the 243rd ranked prospect, the number 16th defensive tackle by ESPN's Todd McShay. Says Marshall has a good combination of height, bulk, and speed. He has good initial quickness and is the best suited to play the 3 technique in a 4-3 scheme because of his ability to create initial penetration, but he needs to develop his array of pass rush moves and his ball recognition must improve. But the Jets getting Marshall with the 6th round, their 6th round pick overall is 207, as he is the first Razorback to land off of the board. Let me hear your thoughts. Gary saying, hope he does well. Yeah, I think we're all now going to be Jets fans. I know my brother's a Jets fan, so he's already texted me that he's excited to have gotten a Razorback. William said, no way, Boyd goes next. Well, yeah, there's a lot of running backs on the board that kind of are getting picked off. You saw a lot of them in this round specifically. You had Eli Mitchell get taken in this round. You had the Missouri back get taken. Memphis back got taken in the 5th round. They started kind of coming out, like 3 of them in the first 3 rounds, which was not a lot. And they started to trickle down, but Boyd's still on the board. I know there's NFL has a couple of a few running backs graded higher than him, so we'll see if he comes off the board. Obviously had a great junior year that really propelled him, and that's what I hope that teams are looking at, is his junior season of not his senior year, where he played 7 games, rushed for a little more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Could have hurt his draft stock a little bit. That's a whole nother debate, but Boyd could go next, still on the board at running back. Felipe Franks still on the board. Let's actually queue up who is still on the board. Let's go to this little bullet list to keep you guys, if it clicks through. We might have to just ship through because it's not, there we go. It wasn't listening to me. So here are some of the prospects on the draft board. Obviously we have Felipe Franks still waiting to hear his name called. Jonathan Marshall just getting selected. Rakeem Boyd still there. Cornerback Jerry Jacobs still on the board. Xavier Kelly. These are guys who spent a little bit of time at Arkansas. Xavier Kelly was a Clemson guy, transferred for his redshirt senior season in Arkansas, playing 9 games for the Razorback in its final season, recording 8 tackles, a sack, and a pair of QB hurries. Jerry Jacobs spent time at, he's bounced around. He was Hutchinson Community College, Arkansas State, coming in the 2020 season as a redshirt. senior, playing 4 games before opting out due to COVID-19. First 3 games of the 2021 at cornerback is where he spent 7 solo tackles against Georgia in their season opener. So there's just some guys that are still waiting to hear their names called. And right now we are rolling down the 6th round as we are kind of winding down. Right now Buffalo has a pick, so we're kind of looking at, you know, it was kind of Felipe Franks might fall into this 6th round. Todd McShay had him ranked as his number 239 prospect out of 350. So if you're looking at the draft board, we're now right at pick 213. We're kind of falling into that zone where we could see Felipe Franks being taken. And he's also the number 11th best quarterback available out of everyone. And obviously we saw a bunch of quarterbacks get taken in the 1st round. Let's just roll up to Felipe Franks. Here we go. He remains on the board. We saw a lot of quarterbacks obviously get taken first 3 of the draft. And then it settled down for a while. And you thought that the 2 after the Florida quarterback got taken, you thought that maybe then it's Felipe Franks is next best. Obviously, there's still the Texas guy on the board. There's still a few quarterbacks. If you're looking through prospects, and I can pull them up and just give you some behind-the-scenes info of what these draft grades are. Sam Ehlinger, the senior quarterback out of Texas, has a grade of 5.88. They actually, NFL is ranking Jamie Newman ahead of Felipe Franks out of Wake Forest, but a lot of people are also saying Felipe is probably the best out of the 3 that could be taken next in this draft. As I'm looking through some comments, hello Anthony, how you doing? Gary, Gary says he doesn't think Boyd gets drafted. It's a realistic possibility. You're seeing running backs kind of been sputtering throughout the draft. Not as many as you would have hoped get picked, because at this point you'd be happy to see a few running backs get off the board, so it bumps Boyd up, but it also bumps the demand down from NFL teams. Linda saying congratulations. Yeah, big congratulations to Jonathan Marshall, the first Razorback taken in the 2021 NFL draft with the 6th round pick from the New York Jets, pick number 207. It was a long wait for those defensive tackles. This was a deep defensive tackle draft. And, you know, in other years, maybe Marshall could have been a much higher pick, but there was just so many options. If you looked at just how many pass rushers were in this draft, it really made that position group really tough. But landing with the Jets, Marshall's projected as kind of like a 5.8 grade with the NFL, which means if you're going to go off their rating scale, that kind of means he has a caliber in their rating system to be a solid backup and special teams player. You look at guys like let's put in comparison what that rating means to like Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was a 7.4, which is basically a rating of this guy's going to be an all-pro quarterback. So if that gives you any indication of kind of where the discrepancy is between those ratings, there is a whole system in terms of prospects. So a guy like Felipe Franks is rated at 5.65, which is a rating that has a chance to make an end of the roster or a practice squad, as he looks to have his name off the board. And this is some video from his pro day if you want to look at it. He had a great pro day. I mean, this is a really fast quarterback, ran a 4.59 40, which is comparable to some of the fastest quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Just really raw talent that I think a lot of oh, I'm sorry, I've been looking at the wrong camera I think the whole time. It was been on this camera. I've been looking at this one. Sorry, we have 2 cameras. I was wondering why I'm not staring into the screen. So apologize if it looked like I was looking away from you guys the whole time. I really thought we were on a different cam. Anyway, he's what a lot of draft people are saying is a really raw talent that is really good. I mean, this guy has a great arm. He was drafted by the Red Sox a couple of years ago, having not played baseball since high school. So he's got a cannon, can flick it to 50 yards pretty easy. It's just, does a team want to invest in that kind of potential and see if they can groom somebody? And I think there's a couple teams that people are, you know, looking at a quarterback still in the late rounds. You know, some people have been calling it. You know, I've been looking at the Giants as one. You know, everyone's kind of, every time a Dallas pick rolls around, I think a lot of people want that to happen. Maybe Franks will go to a Dallas, but they don't have any pick anytime soon, at least not for the rest of the 6th round. So Franks still a guy that's on the board. What do you guys think? Are you surprised Felipe Franks has not been picked yet? That's the big question. Were you surprised Marshall went before Franks, or is this kind of what you expected? I know there's some thoughts about Boyd in the comments not being able to be picked, or some people thinking he might get drafted. Some people think he doesn't. I know William said he thinks Boyd goes next, and Gary says he doesn't think he gets drafted. So that's a big one that's up in the air. We spoke with Boyd. You can watch that whole interview on our website right now. I spoke with him on Wednesday, right before the draft, getting his feelings of how he's prepped, what a team gets if they draft a Rakeem Boyd. You can check that full interview out. As let's roll back on these prospects just to make sure anyone who's just joining us can see our own little big board, our Arkansas big board. I know everyone looks at Mel Kiper's ginormous 350 prospect big board, but we have our nice little 5 prospect big board with Felipe Franks, Jonathan Marshall, obviously the first Razorback taken round 6, pick number 207 to the New York Jets, who have needed some line play. So that was a good spot for him to land, as a lot of defensive tackles were going off the board round 5, round 6. You only felt it was a matter of time until Marshall kind of had his name called. Let's just check in quickly, as I'm just keeping up with these draft boards in case while we're on this Facebook Live, someone else is being taken. Right now, it's the Green Bay Packers pick. And hey, who needs a quarterback? I don't know if it's the Green Bay Packers. There's been some drama around that team in the last couple of days. Obviously, Jordan Love is there, but there's some Aaron Rodgers. Big drama as he takes in the Kentucky Derby today. It doesn't look like Aaron Rodgers has much on his mind in terms of football right now. Titans on the clock with the 215th pick, as we're just going to keep on here for a little bit as we get your guys' thoughts on Marshall being drafted to the Jets. This is a pretty good spot for him to land. And, the other two, I think the hardest two to peg are, Jerry Jacobs and Xavier Kelly. Are those guys are pretty far down the list in terms of prospects. Xavier Kelly, a defensive tackle too. We mentioned that is a very deep position. Kelly coming out of Arkansas, but also playing a lot at Clemson, so that he has the ability and the potential. He was one of the best, I think, players, the number 1 recruit out of Kansas in high school. Just had to bounce around after Clemson, spent 1 year at Arkansas. So I think the bottom 2 on your list are kind of guys that free agency contracts, maybe if they don't get picked up. I think that same goes for Boyd and Franks. If, hey, no one gets drafted, I think a lot of these guys do sign on very quickly with teams, because I do believe Felipe Franks is the best quarterback available right now in this draft class. In the remaining quarterbacks in this draft class, as we have just a few left. You talk about Sam Ehlinger from Texas, Jamie Newman from Wake Forest, Felipe Franks from Arkansas, Peyton Ramsey from Northwestern, kind of looking like those are the 4 left. And it's really hard after everyone's gotten their franchise quarterbacks in the first round to see if you can pick up a Felipe Franks, but just a ton of raw ability from him. As we are kind of nearing the end of the second round, we're just going to queue back up if I can find here we go. Just to reiterate for people who are kind of just joining in, I see a couple are fluttering in, that Jonathan Marshall has been drafted by the New York Jets with their 6th round pick number 207. Williams says not getting picked. Does that say something about the players or something about Arkansas? That's a great question. I think you can have a debate about that all you want, because then the whole thing is, it also compares to, there's multiple factors, right? COVID being one of them. This is a year that we didn't have much film as we normally do on players. I think the whole thing about Trey Lance was we didn't get to see him really at all this year. It was just past film that people were really compiling against. So does that hurt draft stock if a player could have had a great senior year, had a little bit of tape on this year, but NFL teams have had to really look at the last couple years where maybe they weren't as developed as they could have been if they had a full season? I think that is also a very big chunk of it. And that also just in turn rolls into the entire country. How many people are coming out of this draft? How many people are staying a year? What this class could have looked like and been different? So I think that, William, that's a really complex question, but if I had to answer it, I say it says something about the players just in terms of their position group, because at the end of the day, you are compared to those who surround you, right? So I think if you're looking at Arkansas as a program as a whole, you got to break it down from player to player, just because that's who you get pitted up against. Especially when you look at a lot of SEC talent around the league was getting scooped up. I mean, Alabama, I mean, you expect that, but also Kentucky having a lot of picks, Missouri having a lot of picks, people who are very comparable programs to Arkansas having a lot of success. So maybe it does say something about the school, because there was some down years, but, you know, looking up right now. But I think it's twofold, William, and I think it's a great question that you could debate a long time about. I think it's just always been a really weird draft in terms of the fact that COVID has made this such a weird season to evaluate players. And it was said on the broadcast on NFL Network that a lot of teams are either trading back because they don't want the picks in this draft because they don't feel comfortable with the evaluations. And a lot of teams and other teams are trading and grabbing a bunch of assets in this draft because they say, hey, this guy could have been a third rounder if this draft was actually normal. But because it's not, he slid all the way to the 5th, so maybe they're getting a steal. So there's two minds in thought in this draft. It's been really interesting to see it play out. Mark says Frank should have stayed home for one more year. I think that's always a tough debate because hindsight's always 20/20, right? You never know what's going to happen in that time as we are approaching the 216th pick with the Steelers on the clock. No one else being taken since Jonathan Marshall being taken by the Jets in the 6th round. That's another one, Mark, where you think, well, time will tell, as the cliche goes, right? Because it's the same thing with Raheem Boyd. You know, what was his situation would have been like if he went his junior year instead of staying his senior year. Did that hurt? Did that help? I think now we have a little more clarity on that situation, but you only know after the fact, because Felipe could have came back one more year and had a very bad year, quite frankly, and then now you're saying, oh, he should have went. So I think that answer is always very tough to judge because you never know that situation because you can only pick one. You can't see both sides of that coin. But Jonathan Marshall, first one off the board being taken. That's a very exciting thing for Razorback fans. I know it's all the way on the East Coast, but you got to think out. A lot of Jets fans going to be coming out here in Razorback Red as he's selected in the 6th round. As we're going to kind of wrap this thing up. Draft still going on. It should be going on for a while. Right now we're in compensatory picks in the 6th round. Got a handful of those before we go in the 7th. Could see Felipe Franks going anywhere from now until the 7th round. So very exciting. Congratulations to Jonathan Marshall, just a really hardworking guy that's getting his opportunity. 6 rounds going to be a prove it, but if there's one person, you see how hard he's working in his pro day footage right there, and that's just one day. So imagine what he can do in a training camp. Yes, Sharon, congrats to Jonathan. It's very big to have the first Arkansas player selected in the 2021 NFL draft. We waited a while. We waited patient, but it happened, and I'm sure every Razorback fan's very excited. We will see where the rest go. And if any more get drafted, I want to let you guys know, if any more of these players get drafted, we are going to make sure you know right as it happens on hogville.net and also on our website, nwahomepage.com. We will be, anytime someone is getting drafted in these next couple of hours, we will get a push notification on your phone. So make sure to enable those notifications and you will know right off the bat. If you're not watching the NFL draft, I mean, I've been sitting here since 10:30 just watching pick by pick. I'll do all that hard lifting for you, and then you guys would just take out your phones when you hear it buzz, and you'll see if one other Razorback goes. So make sure to download the hogville.net app and keep up with us. William saying, go Omahogs. Yeah, I'm looking at the score right now. Is that 16-2? They're crushing LSU, William. So you got to be really happy. I know Matt was in here yesterday. He's one of our viewers saying he was at the game. So he's got to be really pleased with the score over in Baton Rouge. They have not won a series there since 2004, looking like that's going to change if they win this game. They take the series, ending a 17-year drought, and then they can go for the sweep because today is a doubleheader. Remember that. We're going to have coverage of that game on our local stations, on our Pig Trail Report. So make sure to tune in later tonight for those. But again, Arkansas up 16-2. we're going to wrap this up, guys, because we have much more draft coverage right now. Another running back just got taken off the board, but it's from Virginia Tech, Khalil Herbert. So maybe that bumps Rakeem Boyd up a little bit. That guy's going to the Bears as we are in the 218th pick of the draft, 34th in the 6th round. But again, Jonathan Marshall getting taken 6th round by the New York Jets, the first Razorback to be selected in this year's draft. If you're watching this late, let us still know in the comments what you think about this pick. Are you excited for Marshall? Do you think he could have had a better landing spot? Should Franks have gone earlier? Let us know if you're watching this after the fact. But that's going to wrap up our PTN Live, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, check those notifications on your app, and you'll make sure to get the next hog drafted. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching this Pig Trail Nation report.